today. So today we do have a very interesting topic as part of our trainings. The most important thing, which is a Git and GitHub, or the version control system. Actually, what is this? Means we have learned Java, we learned Oops, and we learned Selenium, and we learned TestNG, Maven, Cucumber, etc., etc. These all things we have been learned. Then what is the purpose of this, or what is exactly this we are talking about, this version control system, where we call it as VCS? What is this VCS? So this is where we will be discussing about with this particular late agenda for today. I didn't made it so organized, but I'll try my best to bring it to an organized structure way. If you see here, what do you meant by version control system, and why we use this version control system, and what are the tools available in this version control system, and what are the differences between CVCS and DVCS? Don't worry, so don't get don't feel that what is in acronyms for that one, or is it a heavy weighted terms? Don't worry about it. It's a very simple. We can play around that and we can learn it. And then we will talk about what is a Git, and then what is the features of the Git, and what is the repository? What is is it a local repo, or is it what exactly meant by a repositories? Because continuously we will chant this particular name throughout our sessions about the repositories, so we will understand what is this repositories. And then we'll talk about what is GitHub account creations. What is GitHub? So now we understand what is Git, and we will try to understand what is the difference between a Git and the GitHub. So we'll be discussing about here, and then we will create a GitHub account, and then we will go and then we'll have a walkthrough on the UI. Oh, what is this? I'll just take you a tour around that particular session, means a tour around the GitHub portal, and what are the things we'll have, how to create this session quickly. We can do some working session over here, and then I'll make sure that you people work and then create some versioning system by today itself, by the end of the session. And the most important thing is this is for the guys who entered into the real-time project. So now so how to use the Git? So now learning and implementing it, this is the most important thing for you people. So first you need to understand on this related to the what is GitHub desktop, why we should use the GitHub desktop, so we can have the commands and controls and doing this. We can do it in a multiple ways, but the easiest way quickly we can do the adoption is the GitHub desktop. So there are lots and lots of features out there. So we can play around in the black color screen, where go to the command prompt and do the things, but with the help of something UI is there, we are always easy to do that, right? Rather than creating writing the commands and implementing that. If you have some buttons, just click that and then do whatever the things you wanted. So that is very easy, right? So that we can get it from the GitHub. And here we need to understand few keywords and the operations and commands of the GitHub, so how these things work. So before starting the GitHub, first I'll talk about the keywords in this one, and then I'll do that. So that is what we wanted to do. And later part of this particular session, so how to work with the Eclipse with the Git. So there are some in default, by default options, and then things are available from the Eclipse itself, how we can do that. So that we will discuss about in the later phase, not in this particular session. And apart from this one, even we can discuss about the complete Git architecture, or how the complete Git workflows will work and all those stuff. But all those things now not in this particular session, because as you guys are pretty new on this one, so I'm starting this one from the scratch, so that we can understand what are the basic things and how we can currently use for the projects. Okay, so this is what the basic the agenda laid for today. And the references which I have been taken it here, if you see by the name itself, you can see this is from the edureka. We have taken these things, and then I have taken the these from our we do have Telesco site, right? So Naveen Reddy's, so we are taken from him. So these are the two tutorials which we have been referred for preparing this particular course content. Okay, now let's get back to the version control system. So now the first we will go ahead with each and everything laid as an agenda. So now we'll talk about what do you meant by a version control system, or what do you meant by a version. Okay, first of all, to understand this terminology, version control system, I just wanted to understand what do you meant by a version control system, or okay, what is meant by a version? So, any quicker answers? You want me to pick the names, or you can tell me? Means someone can volunteer on this. What do you meant by? See here, I just wanted to know what is version, or what is the purpose of versions. We will have it. You can tell me in the layman
An
terminologies
updated
also.
I mean, new
snapshot.
updation.
New
I
updations.
mean, any improvements or any changes are occurred in our code or a functionality, we will release new version uh, to differentiate
Excellent.
I mean,
Excellent.
improvements.
Super. So now I'll give you a small example. So now what Sonam said, I'll give the same example. Now I have a website. I'm creating the own website for me. In this website, okay, rather than my own website, I don't want to take. I'll take the Gmail example as usual every time, which I will pick up. So the Gmail portal we have done. Okay. Now for this one, the first thing I have done with the login page, and then I have done with the inbox. So these are the two things which I have done it in the version 1. Now next I wanted to make the update for this one. So now apart from version 1 plus, I'll have the outbox and I'll have the trash. And so now this is means it includes, this is version 2, means this includes what means login, inbox. Now I have another two features called outbox and trash. Now I do have another version which is v3. So here I'll have v2, uh come on. So v3, sorry, v2 plus, I do have another thing like compose mail, and I'll be having send items. Like this I have added some more features. Now if you see here, the first version of this one have this particular piece of code, means this is called right version, right? So now I'm just trying to have in this particular version I have this, and now when I go to the next version, it includes this plus this. Or for an example, I wanted to remove the inbox feature and then I can keep some other extra feature over there. Means there might be some updations of our code, whether it will be deleted or enhanced, and then that can be maintained as a version. Now to control, means because we need to have this complete things has to be controlled, right? So for doing this one, we will be having the version control systems. So what means, if you see here, the basic the pointer. So if I go here and if I try to get this, so now what is one version control system is, means the basic definition, it means we can have some, means whatever the things we have, it will have the entire state of the project. Means for example, in this particular means the version number 1, we will be having whatever the state of the project, and if at all I'm making any particular changes of that one, it will take that as a snapshot, and then according to that particular snapshot, it will gives us it gives a versioning number or anything. See, now we given this is a version number 1 and version number 2 and version number 3. For an example, I read means I just went means consider a client. So now just I'll just remove this particular example Gmail. So we'll go for another example. So now what I wanted to do is, I written some piece of code in version means I was writing for a framework code. Okay, so I written from framework 1, and then I have added some features, feature 1, feature 2, and feature 3. Now I when presented to the client said that, boss, I didn't like these two features, you write another means make change of that particular features. Then what I'll do, okay boss, as client is always boss for us, we'll change for, okay, feature 3 and the feature 4 have been written, or whatever the changes I have, and I presented it. Then the client once again come back and say that, boss, no, whatever the features which we have been given now, it is not so good, but you presented last time, right? So those features are really good, can you go back and get it away? So now, so this is the means if you don't have that particular backup, what you need to do now, once again, oh shit, so I need to sit once again and rewrite the same thing again here, means the feature 1 and the feature 2. whichever the code which I have written here. So once again, I need to rewrite it over here, right? So we should have the backups of this one, right? So if you're taking the snapshot of this, so I take this snapshot and I'll store it as version 1, and I'll take this one as a snapshot and keep it as a version 2. And now if suddenly client said me that, okay, go back to the version 1, so then it is very easy for me. Okay, I'll go to this one and I'll pick this version. Or if you wanted to interested to proceed further with this in the version, I'll take this particular version and then I'll proceed further. Okay, so this is how the version control system can help us in storing the proper structure of the particular document, the code or anything. So we can, so means that is what we will be means even call this as SCM. What this SCM means, source code management. So how you will manage the source code management? Actually, the people will get confused. So this is source code management. They have many definitions for that, like software configuration management, or these different things are there. But the SCM refers to here in this particular subject or at this juncture. So we need to consider this as a source code management. Source code management means the name itself, we are clearly understanding that we are trying to manage our source code. Okay, so the source code management with the help of this version control system we are trying to do, means for this particular source code we are trying to give different versions for that, and according to that particular versions we are trying to maintain our projects. So now what is this helpful for us, means why it will be helpful for us? For an example, let's try in this way. Now we do have certain developers, means for an example, we do have one of our major project. So I'll write it rather than project name, I'll say that we do have a project 1, and under this project 1, the major people, the most of the people are working here. So here the automation engineer 1 is working on this, and another automation engineer 2, and another automation engineer 3 is working. Now these guys are working, right? So he have task 1, and this guy have task 2, and this guy have task 3, means actually they were working with a different task. Now they need to merge their particular code, right? So this means, see, now ultimately when I told about a project, means the project consists of all these 4 people's code to be merged over here, right? So if it is an independent, so then what is the purpose of this? For an example, take the same example as Gmail. In the Gmail, so this guy is working on inbox, this guy is working on outbox, and this guy is working on trash. Now, at the end of the day, I wanted to have all the features into this particular source code, right? So he have this trash code, and he has this outbox code, and he have this inbox code. But ultimately, at one point of time, they need to merge all these codes, right? Oh, you are using some more new terminology, merging. So the name itself, it was saying that merging all these particular 3 people's code. So this is what we need to have, a collaborated shared workspace. Means which means now I should have a collaborative workspace. So where this guy will push his code. See, another terminology, pushing means, so from his machine he was trying to push to this machine, to this particular workspace. So we have our workspace, and from this workspace we are pushing to this workspace, and this guy also push to this workspace, and this guy also push the code, means whatever the source code from his workspace to this workspace. So now here we learned 3 terminologies: merging, and we are understanding pull means pushing, and then another thing is workspaces. If you're having the workspace in your local machine, then it is called as local repository. If it is having in another place, then it is called remote repository. If it is not in local, so somewhere else it was there. For an example, you're having the Google Drive, so you're storing all your data. See, now we are making all our videos and keeping our videos in there. Why? Because that can be accessed by all the people. See, now we do have, means Abhilash will have his own repository, means a Google Drive, and Sonam will have her own repository, and Priya will have their own repositories. We'll have, means Google Drives, right? You have your own videos, but can anyone else can access that one? No, it is not possible. Then what we have done? Okay, then we created a Google Drive in the central means as a common repository, and we kept all our course materials, course contents, and all the things we have been kept over there, right? So now why we kept there? So it is a collaborative approach, so where everyone can access that repository and then get that particular videos or the contents or materials the same way. So now in the same way, in this particular remote repository, we will be having our source code, and everyone will push that particular source code to here. Okay, so when you are pushing this one, so now you understood, right? So now the pointer, what you need to understand is what is version control system in terms of SEM. So version control system in the source code management is this. So now the question what we have, the question which we answered is what is VCS? That is what we answered now. So the version control system is, first we need to understand the versions. So we have multiple versions, which I given the example as Gmail. So we have multiple versions. And once we have multiple versions, so how we will manage that particular versions is called the version control system. And then SEM, where we do have the source code management. So how to manage that particular source code management. So that is what we have been told here. And we have discussed about few terminologies, which is merging and which is pushing, and then local repository, and then remote repository. Repository, repo or repository, the shortened form of the repository is repo. So what do you meant by repo? Repo is nothing but, it's means, for an example, you wanted to store all your money in one place, means all, mean there are some thousands and thousands of people, so we don't have safety and security in our home. So then what we will do, we'll take that all gold and then all cash and everything, and we'll go and keep in a bank. So now if you have taken any bank, so now for an example, in the banks, what we will try to do, there are some lakhs and lakhs of people will have, and then they will keep the money over here. On why they will keep the money in the banks? Because they will say that any point, means, if I want the cash, what I'll try to do, I'll go to the ATM, and from the ATM I'll draw the money. Very quicker, easy to access, and speed in getting the money, means whenever I need the money, I'll go and get the money back, or else I'll go to the bank and I'll get the money back wherever I wanted, means whenever I wanted the money, I'll get it. The most important thing is security. Okay, boss, I don't have the security in this, so I'll just keep there. So then whenever it was required, I'll be getting that one. So that's how we will, means whenever we wanted to keep our complete source code into a common location, and from the common location, if you wanted to access that one for all the people, then that is called as repo or repository. So now this will be called as code repository. So now in this particular code repository, we will store all our code and then fetch whenever we required. So this is called a repository. And we will be having local repository, and we will be having remote repositories. Okay, so I'll just give you a pause for a minute, so to have any particular questions or anything, we can talk about that. Any questions, please?
No, Krish.
All clear?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yes.
So now here we will be we will be knowing some more information also. In when the two people are working, so for an example, Priya is working and Ram is working on this. So now we can understand, means if you push the code, so who has pushed the code, we will have the complete information, and they can't deny that, bus, I didn't make any changes, because this is having SHAI. Okay, so this is one of the algorithms where we do have MD4 and MD5 technologies. It's a hashing technology, means once you made some code, commit check-in, so then that can be converted into 40 bytes, the hash codes, and then that would be means converted, and then it would be shown. So we can't deny that once we pushed it, so whoever, means whoever pushed it, so that complete information will be there. And what means, what are the changes we made to that particular code, also we can get it very clearly. So this is where it will help a lot in the part of collaboration. See, now it's not like that. So if we can push the code, and then we can make the, means when we are pushing the code, means we made some changes, then only we will push the code. right? So that is what, so this will help us to make the collaboration between the people. So multiple people, see, it is really very hard, even if it is a 3 to 4 people team members also pushing the code and maintaining the united code means, then obviously it will be not easy to maintain as a manual. For an example, I have some common methods written. So now I have written something called login. So login functionality is common for inbox and common for outbox and common for trash. So now, if without doing the login functionality, can they do anything? So this was written by someone else. Means, for example, means automation engineer one have written this functionality, and this was written by two, and then this was written by three, and then this was four. Now, if you don't collaborate with this guy, can these guys can work? Obviously not. So now we will be having that reusable methods. Everything would be pushed into the repository. So once this guy is done, so they can reuse this particular component, and according to that, they can run it. So that is the reason the collaboration is very, very important in terms of the project. So I given you the example, right? Same, that example applicable here. Okay, so this is what version control system. Now the next point of this one is why we required the version control system. So now almost the answers we have been discussed here itself. So if you see here, why we required means, it can be having the proper documentation. Means now in the version means in the we discussed, right, in the Gmail one we have inbox and outbox, and into the trash and these things we will be having each and everything. We will have the complete information specific to that particular version. So that is what the people will talk about, the release notes. And we will be having means if you go back to any tool, so if the tool is updated from one version to another version, we will be having the release notes. In the release notes, we can see what are the enhancements it has been done and what are the things it has been deprecated from that version, so that we can have the complete information of that particular thing. And next one is accurate name. So we can have version 1, version 2, version 3, so we can clearly understand that, okay, in the version 1 I'll do have this information, and in version 2 I do have this particular information. We can have that accurate name on this particular aspects, and with that particular name we can go back and then we can retrieve that versions whenever we wanted to have it. Okay, and next one is the rollback. Rollback is nothing but, I told you, right, I came to the version 2, but the client asked me for the version 1, then I can easily go back to the local means the previous version, and then I can bring back that. And if he says that no, 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 I want the another version, then we can come back to the another version. I told you, right, so we have the v1 and v2, and later on the client, if he asks, we can go back to the previous version, and from the previous version, so we can bring that one, because as everything is stored properly into our repository. Okay, and we have been discussed, so we have discussed about this. So that means we have properly documentation we discussed, and accurate names we discussed, and with the examples and the rollbacking also we have been discussed. And we have discussed about remote execute means what is a remote repository and then local repository. So we have been discussed, and then we have discussed who has changed or what has been changed or when it has been changed. So every information we can analyze on this particular version control systems. So that is a requirements. With the help of the version control system, we can do, these are the basic operations or the basic features from the version control system. Okay, so here what are the pointers we wanted to understand. So first we have discussed what is version control system, and why we use the version control. So have you understood on this particular pointers? So any questions on this one? Shall I proceed further?
Yes, Krish.
Okay, if no doubts, then I'm going for the next. So now, what are the tools available in the market? There are many tools in the market, but a few tools which I quickly represented over here. If you see here, so we do have the first most the prayer thing, Git, and then we do have SVN. SVN is nothing but subversion. The acronym of SVN is subversion. And Git, there is no means that's a name itself, it's a Git, no that's not an acronym. And the CVN, concurrent version system, concurrent version. So this is another tool, and then Mercurial, another tool. There are many other tools also there. So we do have Bitbucket and all other things also there. So but the popular, these are the popular tools. And if you see here the graph, why means why we wanted to learn the Git, or why can't we learn with any other things? If you see in this particular graph, over the years from this 2011 and to here, if you see the graph, which it can clearly explain that how many people are interested to use Git. So it was gradually increased the usage of the Git, and that's where the Git became very popular, and then we are using it. Who introduced Git? So the Git has been introduced by Linux Torvald. So this guy, so the name itself you are seeing Linux, okay, Linux Torvald. So the name itself, it was giving me a hint, giving us a hint. So this is the guy who is a founder of Linux. You know why he introduced this one? Actually, you know, right, Linux is an means open source. This can be means that is an, as it's an open source, anyone can contribute to that one. Means for an example, I'm doing some project. So for that particular X project, I means for example, okay, we will take the Selenium. So the Selenium as a because the Selenium is also an open source project, right? So now, as the Selenium is an open source project, I tried creating the project here. So now Selenium is an open source project. So now we started this, and then I kept this as an open source. Throughout the world, many people wanted to contribute to Selenium, right? So now when some thousands and thousands people are logging this particular code, so we need to maintain this particular version control systems, right? Or I need to maintain my source code, right? So at that point of time, so we need to have this particular version control tools. That is what we have discussed. At that point of time when he was doing for the Linux, they used to have the Bitkeeper. So the Bitkeeper is one of the tool which is called means the same version control system as a Git. There is another tool. What this guy have been done is, so this guy had made this as a paid tool. Means it's a previously it was an open source, and then it made a paid. So he was irritated and frustrated with this, and then this guy, he himself started a open source project which is called Git. So now that Git has been increased a lot, and then it is most famous now, most prominently used tool now. So the same guy who means who's the founder of Linux. So this Git was also introduced by him. So why he have done is, so previously that Linux code has been means many contributors are there. So to handle that one, so he tried to use this tool Bitkeeper, and then later on once it converted into the commercial, then he himself he created a new tool. So that is called the Git for his code source code management. And then as this is open source, it has been given for all the people. Okay, so now that's the reason we will means out of all these particular tools, so now we thought to learn about the Git. Now before jumping into the Git, now we wanted to understand two more terminologies, which is called DVS, DVCS and CVCS. So what is this? Means DVCS and then CVCS. DVCS is nothing but it's a distributed version control system. Okay, so now CVCS is a central version control system. So now we understand what is version control system and what are the tools available, and in the tools we wanted to understand the DVCS and CVCS. CVCS means it's, as I'm continuously enchanting, so DVCS is nothing but distributed version control system and central version control system. Now we will first try to understand what you meant by uh, central version control system. Then what are the disadvantages of that? Then you can whatever the pointers of discussion, then that is what are DVCS. Okay, let's try. So let's try to see what is this. Okay, so now once again I'll just try to draw a small diagram here for our quick understanding. Now central version control system, the name itself, we are understanding that we have developer one, developer 2, developer 3, developer 4. Now everyone will have their work, means the working copy will be there. Working copy, guys, you need to understand, working copy is different from the local repository. Okay, working copy means means whatever the work means, he wanted to open in the Eclipse, he'll open that and he will have a working copy here. Everyone will have the same. Now once they have this one, he will be connected to this central server. Everyone is connected to the central server. Now what on the internet, whenever there is an internet, then only he can connect to this in this this particular server, and then he will take that particular code and then he will work on this. Okay, everyone will have the working copy. Working copy, okay, they will have the working copy, and in the working copy whatever the code they have been done, and then they will push to this central repository. So this is what, right, we talked about the collab means the version control system. Now this is our central repository. Think that there is no internet, you went on a flight and then you wanted to do some changes and doing this. At that point of time you can do it? No, without internet we can't do it. And think that your central repository has been crashed, or think that your central repository has been hacked by someone else. Will it be means it means if you lost this data, will we have means able to do anything over here? We will lost the complete data, we need to do it again, right? Here we'll have only the working copy but not the complete this data, right? So they will be losing the complete things, right? So for this one, what is the new concept it came is, we will be having distributed version control system. What they have did is, so here they will be having a local repository. So here they will have the local repository, and every guy will have the local repository. Okay, now what it will do is, it will not need to have the internet also. So now what I'll try to do, whatever the changes I am doing in my working copy, I'll just push it to the local repository every time. Okay, every time, and then as soon as I get connected to the internet, then I'll push this one to here. And if someone has been means hacked or destroyed or collapsed this one, anyways I have my backup in my local repository. Local repository is nothing but it's a copy, it's a copy of your document. Now for an example, you have an Aadhaar card, so now it means you means there is an original copy, and you can means what you will try to do, you make a color xerox and you can keep that one. So if something happen, you can reapply with this particular xerox copy, right? So there is means I lost my original copy, anyways we can download it from that. That may be the not right example, take or the PAN card. So now we have the duplicate PAN card with the color copy, so that you will keep it, means we will keep that. And whenever you lost it, so you can go and say that, boss, this is my PAN card, I lost it, so I need another PAN card with the same number and all these things, blah blah blah. I was just giving some random examples here, guys, it may not be so accurate. So now what we are trying to say is, so there will be a central repository here, and if something happened, if something we lost it or something anything happened over here, then there is no problem, because we will have in the local repository, from our working station we'll push it to the local repository, we have complete backup. So if you see here, the first thing is, it's not required any internet connectivity or anything. Means even in your flight, you can, when you're going, so you can type it and then you can store all the data means into your local repository. As soon as you connect it, you can push to the central repository, and always you will be having the backup code in your local repository. And another most important thing is, it is very faster. So because you have the local repository, you can get as quickly as possible. See, every time if you are fetching it from the central repository, it will take some time. But if you have a local repository, then there is no requirement, it's in your mission, right? Local repository is nothing but, in your local mission you will be creating a space, means for example, go to the D drive, and then you will create some work, means local repository here, and all the project you will be lies in this particular D drive. And once it's done, from there you will push it over here. So in your local PC or local laptop, you will have certain folder and keep all your codes and everything here, and from here you will be pushing it. So this is called the local repository. And central repository is nothing but it's a common workspace for all the people. So did you understand what is the difference between a local repository and a remote repository? If you understand that, so the difference between the central repository, central version control system and distributed working system is this the same. Now, okay, before going further, so any questions on this one? If you see here, this is what an example means. I'll once again give the time for you people. So if you see here, so these are the local repositories, and this is your central repository. Actually, there is a good diagram here in the repositories. We can see this. If you see here, we discussed about what is a repository, what is a local repository, and central repository. If you see here, these are the three guys. This guy is Abhilash, this guy is me, and this guy is Rajesh. Okay, we guys are working together. Now what we have done, so in my local repository I have it, and local repository I have it. With the help of Git tool, and with the help of the Git tool, I was just pushing that code to the central repository. See, so I have multiple people are there around this multiple people with the help of this particular Git tool. So now by this you can understand that Git tool help us to maintain this version control system. Okay, so now from the local repository, I'm pushing to the central repository. Either I'll push it or I'll pull it. See, the name itself, it was very clear, right? Push means I'm pushing my code from here to the central, and pulling means I'll be pulling the code from there to my system. Very simple to understand. Okay, so you can clearly understand. Typically located in your local means difference between a central repository, local repository. Typically locates in the local machine. This is in the remote server. So local repository means typically on the local machine. Central repository means typically is on the remote machine, and resides as a Git folder inside your project for root. So actually I'll show you what is this .git. Once we created the project, we can understand that. And here if you see this central repository meant to share the data exchange. So, you know, means of there are multiple peoples are there, right? We can exchange. I told you, right, the common code library which we wanted to write it. So the common code library can have that means this data can be exchanged between the people. But whereas the local, in my mission I'm the admin. No one can come and enter into my system and see hacking or coming. That's a different story altogether. But if at all I'm the admin, if this is my PC, whatever the code written in my PC, I'm the admin for that. So that is what the local repository, because in local repository lies in my local PC. Whatever the code, until unless I push to the central repository, that would be in my control only. That's a basic difference between and uh, difference between a central repository and the local repository. So by this we should understand what do you meant by a central version control system and distributed version control system. You know why we talk about all these things? Because one particular pointer which I wanted to say, uh, Git is a distributed version control system. To tell you this particular word, I explained about the differences between the DVCS and the CVCS. So hope you understood, right? What do you meant by distributed version control system? Got it?
Yes.
So guys, any questions or anything? All clear? Guys, see, if you ask some means Git means the people directly enter into the GitHub and then they will talk about this. But why I'm trying to come up with the means this version control systems, or why we require the basic foundation is very important for anything. If you understand why we need to do this, or why we should use this particular tool, so if you understand the essence of that one, you can easily play around with it. But directly learning means, okay, I can directly open the GitHub and talk about bus Git is a tool, and then you can have the code there. So if you go there, you can't understand what is the basic purpose of this particular tool, why we use this one. So that is what my intention in coming. I know that you all knows about this. I didn't told you any rocket science here. Everyone knows this is what is this all. But to have an organized and structured way to learn before coming what is a Git, so this is what the introduction it requires. I control myself because I do have lots and lots of other content and I wanted to present it, but I just made it very simple to come to straight to the point. But still, I made it little bit organized. So that's where in bringing this particular content in front of you. Okay. So any questions? So now what we have been discussed till here. So first we have been talked about what is version control system, why we use the version control system. Next, what are the tools available for the version control system, and what is C means central version control system and distributed version control system. So we have been discussed, and now we are starting with the Git and features. So we have even discussed about the what is repo, means a remote local repository and then remote repository. We have been discussed about it. Now quickly we will be discussing about Git and Git features. So then we'll go for the Git, means differences between a Git and the GitHub. Clear? So now we discussed the means what the Git is, a distributed version control tool. So guys, this is a tool which it can help us to make our version control system. Okay, so now if you see here, there is a diagram. So now there is a remote repository, and so these are the collaborators are the different peoples. So this is a developer 1, developer 2, developer 3, developer 3, 4, 5. So 6 developers are there. Now they will have the local repository, see, and from the local repository they will push the remote repository. So whatever the changes, if you see here, they are commit the changes to the source code. Commit, oh, we are using another new terminology. Commit is nothing but it's like a save. So not exactly the same, but just understand that when you are commenting, that means that is what the last the save version, and we are putting into our repository, so that we are committed, not single, I'm committed. So the same way we will be having means this is what the final version, or this is what the status of that code we are pushing into the repository. Okay, so when it comes to the practical, I'll show you when we are trying to do it. So this is what about the Git. The most important things which we wanted to talk about, the little bit features. There are many features for this one, but these are the very quick things which I wanted to bring back over here. Okay, there is some chat. Sorry, leaving for the net issues. Okay, no problem. Fine. Now distributed. So as I told you, so Git is distributed version control system. So I told you, right, it's a DVCS, so distributed version control system. And the second thing is this is compatible with other tools. Compatibility means, for an example, do you remember in our testing we do have forward compatibility, backward compatibility, means supporting for the older versions and the newer versions, forward compatibility, backward compatibility in terms of the browser. The same way, this is a compatible tool to convert from any other tools. Means previously I was using SVN, and we are using means that's a tortoise SVN and C Mercurial. We have different tools, right? Migrating from that particular tool to these tools, so that they have the complete compatibility. Because you seen it, right? So those versions, means those tools have been, because every organization will have their own version control systems. If they have lost that particular version control system, means they wanted to change from one to other, right? So usually previously we used to have QTP, and then we means which is UFT, we changed to the Selenium, as we have a lot of advantages in the Selenium, as it's an open source and all other features. The same way, if we have from some other tools, if we wanted to migrate to the Git, there are many compatibilities provided from the Git tool, so that they can easily migrate from different tools to these tools. So that is what it was having the features from the Git. Next one is the branching model. The most important thing is we can create our own branches. So now what do you mean by the branches? So you are saying that there are means the branches, right? So for an example, now I have a repository. So that repository consists of, for an example, this is what my master branch. Oh, I'm bringing a new terminology. Master branch is nothing but this is what my final branch. Okay, and here what I'll try to do, this is what my sprint branch means. Every week Friday we wanted to give the demonstration. My sprint cycle is one. So now what I'll try to do, this is my first Friday branch. Okay, I'll keep that one, whatever. Okay, I'll keep the name as inbox. So now I was working on the inbox functionality. I'll keep this as an inbox, and then developer 1, developer 2, developer 3, developer 4. So all these people are working, and we will merge all the code here. How this branch would be created, so from the master we will clone, and then we will create a branch. I used another word called clone. Clone is nothing but Xerox copy of that. So now as a master, first I'll take a branch, but I'll not touch, because if something happen, someone wrongly committed, something happened, this branch will go, but master will not be impacted. This is a safe side. So now what we will try to do, the branching, we will first create a branch, and we will, all people will work on this particular branch. Once this branch is stable, then we will merge this particular branch to the master. Like this we will be having. So this is called the branching model, and creating a branch, and then merging a branch to the master, and getting a clone of from the master to branch. It happens in a fraction of seconds. This is very easy and very simple. Okay, so that's where this is very helpful model in terms of Git. So Git have that branching model over here now. And actually the speed, when it comes to the Git the speed, the Firefox has been conducted a performance testing on this particular Git repository. For even in US defense also, they are trying to use Git repository. Means you can understand what is a security, and then what is a fastness of this one. So it is 100 times faster when it compared to other tools. So that is the reason. So many of the people are prefer to use the Git repository. And the next one is the lightweight, because we do have, you can see that, oh, I do have thousands and thousands of lines of code we have been written. All these thousands of lines of code, how I need to, when I keep this one, how much space it will occupy in the repository. So don't need to worry about this one, because what this Git will do is, it will do lossless compression data. They used different type of algorithms to do that. So they compress this particular data, and then they will store it into the repository. Okay, so when we are doing it, guys, they will be having two types of repositories in the Git. One repository is public, and one is private. The name itself, it was saying that this is a public, means anyone can access this, anyone can use this public. Private means only for limited people this can be accessed. For example, I belong to a specific company, for the specific company people only this will be accessed. Outside the company, none of the people can access this particular private repository. But whereas the public, it can be used by the same within the company, even the external complete throughout world the people can access. So the public and then private. And even here, every project will be having different licensing model. So licensing model means Apache 2.0 and GPL license. Like this, the licenses are there. So what do you mean by licenses? Means they will be having certain rules and regulations. For a project, we can have the licenses. What do you mean by licenses is, this can be used, and this can be reused and redistributed, and I can sell it. And this is a complete, means when we saying that open source projects, for open source projects we will be having the terms and conditions. So they will be having different terms and conditions for each and every licenses. Because I don't want to get into it, so it will take a lot of time. So at least you should know, for every project we will be having a licensing model, and each licensing model have a different terms and conditions. Based upon the different terms and conditions, they will name that one with this one. So GPL license, MIT license, and Apache 2.0 license. So like this we will be having it. According to that license, they will have the terms and conditions. Okay, so when you are creating the projects, so the projects will be having a public repository and the private repository, and then the repositories for that particular projects will have the licensing. Now when it comes to this, now I'm talking about the repository, right? So local repositories and remote repositories. Remote repositories means it's a centralized repository, right? So what is a centralized repository? Is nothing but our GitHub. So in the GitHub, we will store the things, means which is called as bank. I told you, right? So all our source code stores in this particular repository. Means this is like a big hard drive. I'm storing all my code. central hard drive. It will have the complete. See, even now, if you have the Google Drive, and then all the people are having 15 GB of space. So that means they will be having some thousands and thousands acres of lands where they will have the hard disk and all the data will be stored here. They are giving for free of cost. There is a different story why they will be giving the free of cost for us. All our private documents and all the data we are giving to them. We feel that if we got a free space in the cloud, we are keeping that. So, but they will miss. They have the complete data of our personal data, our personal certificates and whatnot, all the things, it will be accessible by them. And yeah, okay, I don't want to get deviated from this. So yeah, so now how we are keeping this Google means whatever the personal things, so I wanted to keep it here. The same way here in the GitHub, I'll keep all my source code, whatever the source code which I have been written in here. So all my source code, I'll be trying to keep it into GitHub. So GitHub is a tool, so where it can, with the help of this particular tool, so I can push all my data and then store it in the GitHub hub where I'll store all my source codes. It's a repository and tool which it will help to make me to follow the version control system, achieve the version control system. The Git tool will be used. So where do we do have the speed and open source and the distributed compatibility and the branching, all these options are the from the Git. And another thing is reliability. So we can strongly reliable on this particular tool due to having lot of, that's a trust from this particular tool, as it is so secured and then it is as an open source. So now, as I told you that it's a secured, so it will be using this particular algorithm where it involves with the MD4 and MD5. So these are some hashing techniques. I don't want to get that one. Means when you push the code, it will do some checksums and all the things. You might get confused with these terminologies. That's where don't means why I'm giving this one is, if I say secured, so how secured it is. So then we need to understand about what is this checksum. Means checksum means it's whether it was validating with that previous version to this previous version, the latest version with the converting. So all those particular validations which will be doing it, and it will have who have done this and what they have done it, when they have been done it, all those defaults it will be generated, and we can have the safe and secured informations. Okay, and this Git was under the GPL license, and it is as it is an open source, it is economy. And if it is a private, for private we need to pay for that. Always there will be some commercial things, right? So this is what they have been kept. If you wanted to maintain it as a privately, so they will have a separate servers and all the things. That's the reason they need to pay for that private. Okay, so now this is what the basic differences we need to understand and discuss about this. So if you see, try to understand now what we have discussed is, so we have just discussed what is Git and then what is its features. So now we have been discussed till this, these are the pointers which we have been discussed. So these all things has been completed. So the version control system, what and why, and version control tools, what are there, differences between the central version control system and distributed version control system, what is Git and what is its features, and what is repositories, local repositories, and then the remote repositories. So these are the things which we have been discussed for this. And from here, the real story will start for us. So now, as we completed an hour, so you wanted to the break and have the lunch back and have your lunch, and then can we join for after 1 hour? We wanted to join for this, or you wanted to continue for tomorrow? Just raise your hands as you are in chat. You can say that um, you wanted it for today or you wanted it for tomorrow.